Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's a journalist roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including Attorney General Kris Mayes fighting the governor and the state legislature over this year's budget. Journalist roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Jim Small of the Arizona Mirror, Cameron Sanchez of KJZZ Radio, and Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Jim, we'll start with you. Gosh, I don't know what to start with, the lawsuit or the budget, but the lawsuit deals with the budget, so we'll start with the budget. They got rid of $1.4 billion deficit. How'd they do it?
A lot of spending cuts, a lot of fund transfers, a lot of pulling back money that they'd committed in previous year's budgets. Everything from $300 some odd million for water infrastructure projects to delaying highway projects that were approved last year to cuts in most state agencies. I think just about everywhere took a haircut. Which I know we'll talk about in a little bit in some more details, money from the opioid settlement, the big national opioid settlement that Arizona's a party to, really was an effort in trying to figure out how do you get divided government to agree on, filling in, a pretty sizable budget deficit. Budget last year was $17 some odd billion. This year, a little bit more than $16 billion. So they were able to get there. They were able to kind of cobble together the votes they needed in kind of a motley fashion of Republicans and Democrats. Most of the bills barely passed, had a lot of anger on both sides of the aisle. But they were able to get it done and get to where they needed to be.
And Cameron, that anger in great part was because a lot of folks just felt left out of the process. We've heard this before.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Well, before we had a Democratic governor, it was always the Democrats being the only ones who were kind of left out of the process. And they're like, you have to include us too. We're elected too. Please listen to us. But now that we have a Democratic governor, they're a little more included. Last year, they were pretty upset that the Democratic governor didn't really include them as much as they had expected, I think, but this year, slightly more. So you heard from both Democrats and Republicans this time saying we didn't feel included enough because it was largely a budget negotiated by the governor, the House Speaker, and the Senate President. And then, some members didn't get, I think, any documents until a couple of days before they were being asked to vote on them, which unfortunately, is kind of commonplace for the budget.
Yeah, Mary Jo, it wasn't always commonplace, was it? I seem to remember hearings and all sorts of things in the dim and distant past.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that's even before me, which says a lot.
But we did see it did seem as though there was more involvement than there is now.
There was a time, I think, in the early years of Leila Alston's tenure at the state capitol, she's a Democratic state senator, that they actually had subcommittees that would examine agencies and make proposals that would stick. But that went away a long time ago.
Okay. So with that in mind, we got rank and file not happy, but we've got the governor. Jim, the Democrats not happy with the governor all that much. True?
True. Democrats were upset, I think, in large part because they looked at this budget and said, look, there's a lot of spending cuts. There are other ways we could have gotten to where we were going, right? First and foremost, we have the rainy day fund, which is there for, it kind of expressly, it's the state socking away money to use to bridge temporary shortfalls, which is, I think what most everyone kind of agrees that this is we're not facing a massive recession like we did 15 years ago, where the state was drowning in red ink for years on end. There were a lot of folks who looked at that and said, look, why aren't we dipping into that? Why are we not touching that? And using that to kind of help us get over this without having to weather these cuts. And Democrats, of course, have been banging the drum for a couple of years now about the school voucher program, the universal empowerment scholarship accounts. And saying, like, look, this is a program that's out of control. It is so much larger than anyone anticipated, and it's subsidizing wealthy parents to send their kids largely to private schools. There should be some guardrails on here. We should put some limits. We should cap it. We should figure out a way to keep this program from spiraling out of control. Something the governor mentioned in her State of the State speech of the very first year, and talked about how she was going to, basically eliminate this universal expansion. And it's a political non-starter. It's a third rail, I think, with Republicans. It's never going to happen. But there were some very small guardrails put in place in terms of fingerprinting teachers and things like that. But nothing that's really going to save any money, and that was a thing that I think a lot of Democrats pointed to that too and saying, look, we could wipe out a huge portion of this deficit if we were to really put some restrictions on that money.
So how did the governor sell this to Democrats?
What, sell the budget itself? It's a compromise. This is the best we could do. A little bit of it was 1 against 2, although she is the governor and they just have control of a chamber each, Speaker Toma and President Peterson. But mostly that we all know this is not going to be fun. We all have to tighten our belts, and we did get some wins. And you can see it as you read like the amendments, the things that were tacked on, in the last couple of hours, things that leaned more towards like the social services end of the spectrum, $15 million for the Housing Trust Fund, which, a lot of Democrats were quick to say that's a great win in a deficit year. Now, last year they put $150 million, 10 times that into the budget, which again is also part of our problem, is that we had this massive, wild swing in how much money the state had to play with in 1 year, and we spent it all.
So winners and losers out of all this, what do you see?
I think just levels of losers, because everyone was a little bummed out. Like last year they had money, and so it was like handing out candy, and then this year it's like someone's taking your candy back, and that's kind of a bummer. But I think everyone understood the position they were in. You're starting off the year with this huge deficit that you have to deal with, so there were always going to be cuts inevitably somewhere, and I think some of them were pretty not surprising, like the transportation projects, for example. I know that other agencies are upset, for example, that they had to take cuts, but there wasn't really an option.
And the ESAs, again, as Jim mentioned, like what, a couple $1 million to keep your kids, summer school kids from coming back in, that kind of a thing?
They called it double dipping. It's a provision to get rid of that to ensure, but I think it's only supposed to save about $2.5 million. Those guardrails aren't really something that I think anyone's going to be tripping over. And, the Republicans are pretty steadfast about this ESA thing. I think the Democrats are hoping if they get an inch, they can take a mile. And I think the Republicans are pretty keen on stopping it right here. But of course, the Democrats also hope they can flip the legislature and pretty much undo the whole thing altogether.
I would also say that, technically, one of the big losers was Attorney General Mays. In the last couple of days of the session, she looked at that budget and she said, oh my goodness, they're going to take like $125 million out of this national opioid settlement that came to Arizona a couple years ago and put it into the Department of Corrections. And this is just wrong. It doesn't follow the process for allocating this money. And I'm going to sue, I'm going to sue, I'm going to sue. Well, guess what? The budget happened.
I do want to get to that in a second here, but before we get too far afield here, as far as sine die and as far as getting this thing over with, and speaking of Mays, what happened to the impeachment process here?
I don't know. We'll see.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I forgot about that, right? Obviously, they ended the session. They didn't go forward with an impeachment with dealing with any of that. And I think that getting the budget done is as good an excuse as any to just let's fold up the circus tents and go home. It's an election year. Everyone's got to get out on the campaign trail. We're already in the middle of June, for goodness sake, right? This is already a very long session as it is. I don't think anyone really wanted to be down there any longer than they needed to.
With that in mind, sideways question from Cameron as far as winners and losers for the budget, winners and losers overall this session.
I think we saw Republicans respond differently to Governor Hobbs having a Democratic governor in place than they did the first year. I think the first year was all about throwing everything they could at her, and essentially daring her to veto as many bills as she did, and she did. She set a single session record, and I think halfway through this session she set a career record in 1.5 sessions, and so they certainly weren't shy about doing that, but they also revised their tactics, and they backed off and they sent things off to the ballot. We have a really long ballot this year because they know that they can try to circumvent her veto that way, and I think that in a way that's kind of a win for both Republicans at the legislature and for Governor Hobbs, because I think she was able to show that she was able to stand firm and she wouldn't kowtow to them and she wouldn't blink if they kept sending her things, and I think Republicans took that and kind of ran with it and said, okay, well, if you're going to veto our stuff, we're going to go directly to the voters and see if we can get a mandate from voters.
And I would say, if you support abortion rights, that was a big winner because the legislature, with some Republican help, did overturn the 1864 near total abortion ban. That'll feed into this fall's campaign, but that law is now or soon will be, technically off the books,
Yeah.
literally off the books.
And the session as a whole, I mean, what did you see?
I mean, I think those are both good points. I would also mention the border. That was a big one this year, and putting that border security measure on the ballot. More information yet to come, of course, depending on what happens in the election. But in the budget, public safety was definitely prioritized. Some of the only agencies that didn't take cuts were Department of Child Safety, Public Safety, and border. So
And the Auditor General.
yeah, no, I like the Auditor General.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Mary Jo, let's get to now the Attorney General suing over this budget sweep. What was the budget sweep about? What did the legislature and the governor agree to do? And why is the Attorney General upset and to court? And the court agreed with her, at least to block it a little bit.
Right. So the budget called for, as I was saying earlier, like $75 million to come out of this year's budget, which expires next week, and then another $40 million for each of the next 3 years. So that's $195 million over 4 years if you actually followed through on all that. And Mays ran around with her hair on fire talking to the Democratic caucuses, trying to rally support, saying, this is not the way the opioid settlement money is to be distributed. There's a process. The process is that the legislature approves a chunk of money, and the AG decides how it gets spent. Well, the budget took care of how that's going to get spent. They sent it all to the Department of Corrections, arguing that, well, it's going to be used. We have inmates with opioid problems. Despite that, it seemed like she was really gaining traction on that. The legislature plowed ahead, and Governor Hobbs, and they passed the budget. She signed it, and a couple days later, the Attorney General sued both the state and the governor, and it's been put on. Like a preliminary injunction was granted so that there's more time to sort through this, and they'll be back in court on July 5.
And Jim, the court, the judge, good cause to believe the prison system has no plans to use the funds in line with the settlement. I mean, that's basically what she's saying.
Yeah, and so, to Mary Jo's point, I mean, the Attorney General gets to direct where this money gets spent, and the money has to be spent on specific things, right? I think they really tried to, when they crafted this settlement, tried to learn from the tobacco settlements back in the 1990s, where states got these massive windfalls of money, and some states took that money and used it for things that had nothing to do with the tobacco settlement, right? They used it to fill budget gaps. They used it for a lot of other programs. This was much more narrowly tailored. Things that are for abatement and for rehab and for trying to help people, either get off of opioids or try to prevent people from getting onto them. And certainly we've got the opioid crisis is not over. It's no longer pills that people are getting from pharmacies. Now we've got the fentanyl, and we've got trank and heroin and things like that. And so there's a lot of programs that the Attorney General's office is spending this money on. And her argument was really, look, this is going to the Department of Corrections, and then the legislature is taking money out of the Department of Corrections, out of the general fund budget, and they're just essentially backfilling this money. They cited in there some comments from legislative budget analysts to lawmakers in a briefing that where they acknowledge, look, this is what we're doing. We're bringing money in through the front door and taking it out the back door. This is not going to be giving the department any new money. They're not going to be doing anything else with it other than their current operating.
Governor's office, though, Cameron, says the Attorney General is flatly wrong.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out. So to add some context to this, we won this lawsuit against the manufacturers of the opioids as a huge win for Arizona, but the restrictions on it are pretty specific. We also lost a lawsuit with our Department of Corrections. Unfortunately, the department wasn't treating people as nicely as the court thought they should. So I've heard the argument that, there are people in prison who do drugs, so it's fine. I don't think that's going to fly in court, but that's just my personal opinion. I heard from the House Speaker before they passed the budget, Mays has said she's going to sue us for stuff in the past and hasn't done it. Maybe she won't do it. Okay, but she did it. I also heard Mays saying that she's the one that holds the purse strings and she doesn't have to give over the money, and then the legislature saying, no, we're the ones that control the money. So there's a lot to be determined in this case. And I think one of the biggest questions is, what if the court finds out that Mays is right about this and that they did the budget wrong? Then what does that mean for the rest of the budget and for the funding for that department, and what happens to the money?
And I think I asked you that question when you came on earlier in the week just to talk about the budget. Joe, what happens if that money goes away?
Well, we're back into a deficit, and I mean, if the money goes away, it won't be before June 30th when the current year budget is done. So technically, you take that money away in July or August or September, you're back to a deficit. And who's going to sue? That's what I say. You know, there's always this threat. We've got to have the budget done it's got to be in place by July 1. And years ago, I think, Jim, you were around when the Senate turned off the clock, you know, as it was approaching midnight on June 30th, ready to turn to July 1. But who's going to sue if the state, you know, goes back into a deficit? I mean, it would be very interesting to see. It's never happened, as far, at least in contemporary history.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to happen is, you know, you're right. I mean, Mary Jo's right. The state's going to end up back in a deficit, and then it's going to be incumbent on lawmakers to come back at some point and try to figure out what to do with it and how to kind of, you know, get the accounting in order and get all the money where it needs to be. You know, it could be a special session after the election, could be something that they handle when they come back in January. Maybe waiting to see what the new legislature looks like. I think there's a lot of possibilities for how they could try to come back and deal with it.
And even Mays, when she was spreading the message last week, she said, look, I mean, I'd be willing to have like $20 million for that settlement go into like the current year budget, but she raised the rainy day fund. I mean, the rainy day fund is like almost $1.5 billion. They didn't touch it this year because there's a belief that these problems, some of these are structural. You want to use your rainy day funding for one-time things, like when the Francis Scott Key Bridge, got knocked down. The state of Maryland was able to use its rainy day fund to, get that thing fixed up.
Last question on this. Does this show that the governor and the attorney general are not pals anymore?
I don't know if they were ever best friends, but yeah, they've been at odds in the past, and this is one of those times.
Okay. Well, then we'll just move on. How about that? We'll stick with you. We'll talk about the governor veto. I think she signed 3 water bills. She vetoed 5 others. What's going on here?
Well, I'm going to make it as simple as possible. The legislature put up a lot of water bills this session. Like, one lawmaker put up at least 30, and a lot of them had to do with groundwater. And some of them were very slight changes, but some of them were quite large. So the ones that she passed, I would say, are pretty slight. They're addressing pretty specific regional issues with water. But there were 2 main bills, I would say, one on rural and one on urban groundwater conservation. One of them died on the last day of session, that was the rural, and then one of them went up to her desk and got vetoed this week, and that was the urban. So that was sort of what's called an ag to urban plan, which is incentivizing people who have held over agriculture groundwater pumping rights and sort of paying them to give up those rights and change them into urban pumping rights, which is much lower, less water use in urban areas. Hobbs says she likes the idea of it, and that's what the members of her Water Policy Council said, because they also met this week, coincidentally. But everyone kind of agreed that there's not enough information yet. They don't have enough data about how that would work. They've only studied how it could potentially work in the Pinal AMA and the Phoenix AMA, which are urban areas where groundwater is already protected, and they got super different numbers. So it's not clear yet how the program would go, if people would even take the government up on their offer, whether it's necessary to do it, et cetera.
Yeah, so basically the governor veto says they threaten water supplies and they fail to ensure that water supplies will be sustained. That's kind of what her bottom line was. Yeah,
well, part of the push to introduce those bills, the ones that got vetoed, is because Hobbs, when she first took office, one of the first things she did is she put the moratorium on building new housing in parts of the metro area out in like Queen Creek and Buckeye, because she said there was a ADWR report that showed they weren't using, there was not enough water there to show that they could be building new homes and buildings and such out there because they could potentially run out of water. So in response to that moratorium, the ag to urban is sort of one of those potential solutions. It's like, okay, we need to be building still in areas like Buckeye and Queen Creek. This could be a solution to that.
I heard from Representative Alexander Culloden, who's taken a big interest in water issues, and he's really bemoaning the failure of the ag to urban bill being vetoed. But as I understood it from the governor's veto letter, they're bringing this back. She thinks they're getting close on that. So that has sparked talk or speculation. Will there be a special session? Maybe when they're fixing the budget, I don't know, that they could do something yet this year that would address this way to transfer money from ag lands to urban uses, which would reduce the amount of water for agriculture, which has got a big constituency that's not very nuts about losing more of their water. They've already made lots of cuts, especially in Pinal.
There was some talk, Jim, was there not, about perhaps, possibly, maybe governor calling a special session on just this topic.
Yes, there's talk about it. Obviously, whether that happens, special sessions don't get called until there's an agreement in place, until there's understanding. And when you're talking about having to really go out and gather data and try to figure out exactly what's going on here, that's not a process that necessarily happens overnight. And then once you figure that out, then you have to craft the legislation. Then you have to take it out to the legislators and try to get buy-in for it, so that way you show up and you can do this, expeditiously. We've got an election. Early ballots show up in people's mailboxes, here really quickly in just a couple weeks. The election is the end of July, the primary, and then we go headlong into the November election. I don't foresee anything happening until at least the middle of November, and even then, I think it's almost more likely that you end up with maybe a concurrent special session or something like that once they come back in January.
Last point on this: were you surprised that there were as few or as many? I don't think it's as many water bills and water discussion. It just seemed like this is a big topic that we just did not get a lot of emphasis. Goodness gracious, they cut Ducey's,
WIFA.
Yeah.
I would say there's a lot of pressure, especially since Rio Verde, especially since rural basins are going dry quite rapidly, even though we had a pretty good rain year, that there's a lot of pressure to figure out something with rural, which is almost entirely unregulated. And then, as with the moratorium, there's this push and pull when it comes to housing and water in the urban areas. So people are concerned, and constituents more and more all the time are coming to their lawmakers and saying, you need to do something about this, seriously. And it's not just the state legislature, it's also the Attorney General's office, it's also a local issue. And so, no, I wasn't particularly surprised by it. I kind of agree with what Jim said. I'm not sure if I see a special session happening anytime soon. It was the governor's water guy, whose name is Patrick Adams, and he was addressing the council, and he said, if we get a deal, the governor is willing to call a special session. And when he said that, just in the flow of how he was talking, it sounded like he was talking about the rural plan and not the ag to urban plan. I think they're closer to a deal on the rural plan than on the ag to urban plan. I think that's a lot further out.
Interesting. Mary Jo, op-ed in Arizona Republic from former Governor Jan Brewer, and she says it's time for the Republicans to, quote, reverse course from election denials. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, very interesting perspective, although keep in mind that Governor Brewer, before she was governor, was Arizona's Secretary of State, and that office oversees elections. And things have changed a lot since she was Secretary of State in terms of not how we run our elections, but confidence in our elections, and stemming from maybe a little bit from 2016, but, really from 2020 when Trump lost, especially when he lost in this state. And we saw in 2022, we had a bunch of election deniers running for the state's top offices. They all lost. But I think they want to try to calm the waters, get them. Don't let them get too roiled up. Please, let's not have another audit like we did with the Cyber Ninjas after the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Audit 2024 was my Wi-Fi password.
Okay, we'll write that down. Jim, she mentions misinformation. She mentions partisan rhetoric, relentlessly aggressive and increasingly dangerous. I mean, this is a standard bearer of the Republican Party in Arizona, and she's saying to her folks, knock it off.
Well, I mean, certainly someone who used to be the standard bearer of the Republican Party in Arizona, right? I don't know. She hasn't been governor in.
Well, she's a standard. She's definitely a name.
She's certainly important, and she certainly has a lot of history. But I think we've seen in the age of Trump, all of the people who you would have held up there as these are the standard bearers, right? These are the luminaries within the party. A great many of them are no longer that because the dynamic has shifted so much, and it has really become that there's such a real gravitational pull around what Donald Trump says, and the way what he says kind of goes with the constituents and with Republican voters. And we see it in poll after poll that a majority of Republicans don't have confidence in the elections and think that the elections have been stolen. And that drum is continuing to be beaten. And I don't think it's going to stop. And I think it's good for people like Jan Brewer and to stand up and say that look, this is too much. Like, we've gone too far. We have to have faith in our elections, because if we don't, then what are we as a country? What are we as a state? And how do we handle this? I think it's important for people like her to do that. I don't know, unless there's a critical mass of folks like her doing it, these one-off voices, kind of crying out in the desert, I don't know that they have an impact.
Yeah, but it is interesting coming from Jan Brewer, who was a big Trump supporter, who has been known to stir the pot a lot with her rhetoric, especially when she was governor. But things have changed.
Yeah, they've changed. He says, last quote here, hold accountable those who seek to sow discord and division for their own political gain. That's tough talk there. We hold them accountable. Knock it off.
It's tough talk, but it strikes me as maybe a little bit too little, a little bit too late. I mean, for the people who are already on the bandwagon of the elections are not safe, for a former governor who people maybe haven't had front of mind to write an opinion piece 4 years after 2020, it's interesting to me, but I don't know that it will really stem the tide. And, for her to do it is interesting, but I think a lot of people might just write her off as a rhino.
And obviously that's in the context of election denialism, right, like that statement. But, let's not forget, Jan Brewer is not one who shied away from controversy and from using division as a way to gain in politics, right? Everyone remembers the photo of her with her finger in Barack Obama's face on the tarmac. That was, I think maybe the most prominent example of it within her tenure, but she certainly used she pulled on those levers a lot when she was governor as well.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting thing to read and to hear her say. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona PBS would like to honor our dedicated Legacy Society members, those individuals who have generously included Arizona PBS in their estate planning. We're so grateful these viewers chose to make the future of Arizona PBS a part of their lasting legacy. Thank you.
On Iconic America.
It's like something out of a dream, dropped right in the middle of the city.
This was our holy grail. You had to come here.
And I just go like that, and the ball would go all the way over the green monster.
The Red Sox were the last team in baseball to integrate.
Because the Red Sox didn't want to integrate. The history of the game is right here.
This is my favorite place on earth.
This is Fenway Park. This stays.
Tonight at 8 on Arizona PBS.